Welcome to the first episode of the SHADUF Institute podcast. So SHADUF, we're all about bringing sales knowledge and truth to the world through research, through academic rigor, and we're really excited about this. I'm Dustin Harding. I'm the head of research for the SHADUF Institute.
I'm Gary Johnson. I'm the director of the professional sales program here at UVU.
And we have as our guest today Brett Skousen, who's bringing a lot of experience to this episode. He's been an executive in several different companies, and we're excited to have him here.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Brett, it's really nice. You come with a lot of sales experience. You were a sales executive. And so we're going to be tapping into that experience and expertise during this conversation.
Well, sounds great.
Yeah, today we'll be talking about research that we've been conducting in partnership with Zant. We've been very curious, along with Zant, with how sales leaders are doing with the current circumstances, how they are leading from home in particular, and what their struggles are and how they're dealing with those struggles. And this is just the initial point of research. But one thing that we really want to do at SHADUF is kind of broadcast research as we are learning. And so this is the initial phase of this research. It's opening up a lot of other questions that we're very curious about. But yeah, we're excited to talk about our initial findings.
Sounds like it's very needed at this time especially.
Dustin and I are, we're researchers, and so we come at this a little more academically. And we developed the survey, but now we're at the interpretation stage of the survey, and that's why we wanted to just unvarnished opinions and feelings as we share some of the findings that we came up with, just tapping into your sales expertise.
Sounds great.
Okay. So we created the survey, and Zant helped us send this out to just under 800 sales leaders. And it's really interesting. The first thing we asked them was, were they impacted? Are they working from home now because of COVID-19? And 72% of them are working from home now because of COVID-19. And there were some that were already working from home. That's fine. But with these 72%, all of a sudden getting into this transition and trying to figure things out. I'm sure it's overwhelming.
Hence the survey.
Yeah, hence the survey.
Hence the survey, right?
The one of the things that we were interested in was as they're transitioning, what technology were they finding to be most helpful? The thing that they found most helpful here was email. So even number two was video conferencing, of course. We know that that's going to be really helpful as you're trying to meet with teams. But email just kind of stood out as the most helpful thing. And part of us, we kind of wonder why email was so impactful, particularly with customers. As you're in sales, you're supposed to be reaching out to customers,
Sure.
and a lot of people, we get the feel that they're kind of defaulting to email.
Yeah, the choices, they, phone, instant messaging. There are a lot of other technologies that we maybe expected. So how does that strike you, Brett? When we say email, it's not just the most used, it's the most useful.
Yeah. When I look at that, and this is the first time hearing these questions,
right.
and so, but when I look at that, it's, I think it's a both and. I think if you got stuck and hiding behind email, I think that can be a real problem because you're not really getting out with your customer. I think a combination of email, of video conferencing, of live chat, of a lot of different things would be very helpful. I remember during a situation we had in one of our companies where we were all grounded for financial reasons. Some people made some very poor decisions, let's just put it that way. And so they grounded us from a sales force, from a training, from everything else. And we actually started to develop video email. And that was kind of a combination of both. So they got the real personality of the sales rep, and you were able to convey things that you maybe couldn't in email. Because the risk, anytime something's written in an email or something like that, or on Slack or something, sometimes it's misconstrued, or you seem grumpy, or you seem, you don't get to show that personality. So anyway, I think it's a both and I think you need to engage the customer in as many ways as possible.
So if you were their sales executive and you saw this data and it was your team we were talking about, would you then encourage them, keep using the email is what I hear you saying, but you have got to do more than just...
Absolutely. If you sit and hide behind email, customers are going to lose energy around that. A lot of people don't even pay attention to their emails anymore. And so, especially if you're prospecting, and it kind of depends on what stage of the sales cycle you're at. But boy, they're going to want to see what this can do for them. And email's probably not the best way to show, especially a tech company, how your services are really going to benefit them. So I think you need to engage as many touch points as possible to that customer and see how many ways you can reach them. Because maybe only one gets through. Right. Maybe multiple get through, and they're saying, "Wow, this person's really on the ball. They really want to get with me." So I don't think you're going to lose.
That's interesting. As researchers, we looked at that and we thought, are they defaulting to the lowest common denominator? They're comfortable with email. It's easy, so they're defaulting to like that one technology that they're the most comfortable with. Unfortunately, and perhaps hurting them in so doing.
Yeah, it's the safest, definitely, but probably not the most effective.
What's really interesting as well, that one advantage that we have to working with Zant is, Zant, they're all about using data to help prioritize a salesperson's schedule and what they're doing. And so they have access to all kinds of data. And one thing that they found is that email open rates have dropped drastically. I don't know. We don't know exactly why. Maybe people are just being bombarded with email right now. But the open rates, they just before COVID-19 were around 39% from what they saw, which I think is still pretty high. But they've dropped down to like 6% during these past few weeks, and even down to 4%. And so we have this email as our most useful tool, and we're using it like crazy, but open rates have dropped dramatically.
Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me at all. You see the trend in email even over the last several years before this pandemic. Email rates have been dropping, and other creative ways have had to be used and utilized to make sure that you're getting to your customers. So I think that's a great follow-up question, though, is this is what they're using. How effective is it? Because my guess is it's not overly effective. It's one way, and certainly shouldn't be abandoned, but I think it's like I said, a both and versus an either or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting, I think that a lot of sales groups are hesitant to call right now. I don't know if they're worried about facing rejections more so than usual, but Zant actually sees that the percentage of people actually answering their phone has stayed the same. And so you're just as likely to get a contact with through phone now as you were before COVID-19.
It hasn't dropped.
Yeah, it hasn't dropped.
So Brett, okay, this brings up an interesting question then. These sales representatives, do you think that it's possible they're also, maybe they're defaulting to email because it is safer? You don't get rejected right in your face with an email, right?
Yeah, no, I think that I don't have definitive evidence of that, but my guess would be that would be one of the things. And in life, there's impact and there's activity. A lot of times people do things to try and stay busy, and that's activity. Yeah. And we do a lot of activities in life that really have no impact. So how do we really do those impactive activities? And if I was a sales leader, that's what I would really be looking at and really trying to understand is what are the most impactful things that we can do, not just keeping people busy and staying busy.
Yeah, that is interesting. Okay, so turning this now towards a positive angle, though, do you think it could be possible that some of these sales reps are trying to be more sensitive? That is, they realize their customers are facing a difficult time, it's challenging, they know that they're at home. So do you think email is actually a politeness factor?
Gary, it certainly could be. I always try and put myself and my sales team's self in our customer shoes to really try and understand what's going on. So that very well could be, but once again, it comes back to the effectiveness. And the other thing I'd say right now is I think activities in businesses today, whether you're, Walmart, or Home Depot, which sales have absolutely increased during this pandemic, or you're fighting for your life. Any activity you're doing, you're fighting for your life right now, right? If you're overburdened right now, you're like, oh my gosh, we've got to put all these new processes in place and things like that, and really look at our supply chain and our distribution. If you're, fighting for your life with having no customers and things like that, you're having to get creative there. So I think if we take that mindset and we really look and understand what's that customer looking at, and what's the best way, what's the most effective way that we can serve them and help them to help them with their business. I remember from a sales rep clear up to an executive in sales, I would always look at the customer and I would say, how do we help them? How do we know their business better than they know their business so that we can really help them be better?
That's very insightful. Thanks, Brad.
Okay, so this has been an awesome conversation, and again, like always, we're not necessarily coming to any concrete conclusions right now. That we're still just at the initial phase of this research, but we can already pull out potentially some interesting recommendations to use, as Brett, what you were saying, a combination of phone and email, maybe pull back email a little bit since the open rates have dropped, but focusing on what is the most effective for you and your customers right now.
Yeah, not activity for activity's sake, but actually doing things
Impact
that help.
versus activity.
Exactly.
Impact versus activity.
That. That's excellent.
So thank you for joining us on another episode from the SHADUF Institute. We're going to have additional episodes here to come, and we're going to dive deeper into this survey. We'll have Brett along, so be sure to follow us and like us, or do whatever you need to do on your platform of choice. We'd like to thank Brett Skousen for joining us on our first episode. He's been a great guest. We'd also like to thank Zant for working with us on this project and helping us dive into this interesting research. And of course, our sponsor, UVU's Woodbury School of Business.